it still has a little bit of that village character that makes it a nice place to live. And so I think, beyond just taking care of the schools, that village government should be making sure that we're, investing in parks and investing in our natural areas, continuing to make it a walkable and bikeable community. And, those are the things that kind of attract people to Shorewood and set us apart from some of the other communities in the North Shore. So those are things I'd want to focus on as well if I got this appointment. Was it something I said?
Yeah, she's like, nope, I don't like that one. She hangs up on everyone.
Okay.
She's very dramatic.
Yeah,
I'm sure you'll feel good.
Okay.
excellent, thank you. Christine,
What skills have you acquired or life experiences have you had which make you well matched to the duties and responsibilities of the village trustees?
Well, I've had a lot of experience in electoral politics, in legislative politics, and in government, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to apply for this position right now. I've spent the last 4 years in the Department of Energy's policy office, and my team was the state, local, tribal team. So we worked on a lot of issues that dealt with state, local, and tribal governments. We spent a lot of time taking input from governments, that are not the federal government, all the other governments. And I was hired to help with President Obama's climate action plan, and we did a big report called the Quadrennial Energy Review, which was a big review of the whole national energy system, and we split it up into two major reports. One was on infrastructure for transmission, storage, and distribution of energy, and then the other one was on the electricity system. And so one of my roles in that was setting up all the public meetings for that all around the country. So I did 21 of those around the country, many of which were planned at the last minute with Secretary Moniz's busy travel schedule. But the philosophy we had was, I think, kind of similar to what you'd want to do here, where you have everything open to the public. You hear voices from diverse viewpoints, people from all walks of life, people from kind of.
Could we wait to in between his answer the question?
Okay,
I think it's
sure,
disrespectful to.
Like I say, we did a lot of. I had to do a lot of AV stuff, so I feel the pain. We had to do. We tried to get views from across the spectrum. So like we would invite people who were, organizations who were opposed to what President Obama wanted to do on climate and energy, just to make sure we're hearing from all voices. We invited elected officials. They're all open to the public. We had speakers representing the whole spectrum of interests in energy and academia, labor, and everything else. So.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Can you hear me?
We'll go mute now.
I'll try to talk loud. This is
Don't read
about
my
as
text.
loud as I ever talk. I'm gonna mute her.
She won't be able to hear you.
Oh no, she just. Oh yeah, you're right. Okay. So yeah, just taking viewpoints from the whole spectrum, from all walks of life was a big part of what I did there, and I would want to continue that. I know this board has taken steps to make things more transparent by having meetings recorded and for people who can't attend a meeting in person, and just I know that some of the trustees have tried to use their own Facebook to live stream events and just make it available to the public that way, and I really appreciate that. That just kind of opens it up and makes the process more transparent and more fair, and I'd like to continue doing that. And then besides just the public meetings, I did a lot of legal analysis for some of the really complex policy issues we faced, and my office was down the hall from the Secretary of Energy's office, and it was a long hallway, but still it was, we were doing things at a pretty high level. We were working with members of Congress. We were part of an interagency process with the White House, and so I'm used to working on things that are really high profile and controversial and doing it in a public way, and just being very professional about it and very thorough. And I would try to bring that with me here if I got appointed to the trustee position. I really learned a lot about how policy is made, and the trustees, their job is to kind of set the broader policies for the village. And I think I would just bring that experience with me. And then I've had, besides just being in government, I've done a lot of political work. I ran for office myself in 2012 I was a statewide candidate for South Dakota Public Utilities Commission, which is a partisan office in South Dakota, and I got to travel all around the state. I did parades, I did events and fundraisers and everything that you guys do as candidates for trustee. And beyond just my own campaign, I worked on President Obama's election in 2008. I was on the campaign staff in Iowa, South Dakota, and Alaska, and then I've worked on a number of other races. I ran a statewide office for Al Gore's Repower America campaign, which was to get the climate and clean energy bill passed through Congress. That bill passed the House in 2009 and then was unable to overcome the filibuster in the Senate in 2010. But that gave me a lot more sort of management experience and public engagement, and I ran 3 offices in South Dakota and 2 in Illinois. And so I think, in look, there's a lot of good candidates who have applied for this position, and I think you do also have to consider beyond just the job of trustee is it'd be good to have somebody with that kind of political experience who could run for election again in 2019 and not just lose that year of experience, but continue on beyond 2019. So, everything I've been doing really since law school, I almost forgot to say that, I'm an attorney as well, and have worked in private practice and worked as a attorney at a law firm that represented a lot of municipal governments. So I became really familiar with a lot of the liability issues that municipalities face, a lot of the employment law issues that municipalities face. Things like we had a really interesting First Amendment case, and we had Voting Rights Act cases, we had contract cases, we had land use, we had the whole gamut of things. And I'm kind of getting back into law practice now, and that would be something else that I would want to bring to this position. So I really feel like really my whole adult life has kind of prepared me for this position, having my legal background, having my policy background, working in government, overseeing budgets, and then running campaign offices and running my own campaign has really prepared me for, if I was fortunate enough to be appointed to this, to then run for re-election in 2019 and just continue on that experience helping out the board here.
Excellent, thank you so much. Who's next?
So, trustee Coconut.
What is the overriding reason that you want to serve in the position of trustee, and how can you contribute to the service?
Yeah, I would just reiterate that, I'm back in my hometown, back where I grew up, and I'd like to be able to apply all of that knowledge and all that experience that I've had into helping my community continue to grow, helping to continue to have these great schools, these great quality of life that we have, all the public parks and amenities that we have here. And one more time.
You know what, Anne had said that she had emailed and said that she had
What do we
slide
do?
reception.
Isn't this?
What do we do?
Oh,
I think we
the
got
phone
it.
button.
Yep.
Phone.
Yep.
All right, you're back.
Just make sure to mute us.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay, that's okay.
Can you hear? You good?
She can hear.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect.
So, and just kind of continuing, it's, I feel like a lot of times, people decide to run or not. A lot of it has to be based on their own personal situation. And now is a really good time for me right now to apply for this appointment because I have moved back here full time. I had been since early 2016 kind of splitting my time between here and Washington DC, coming out here Thursday night and flying back Monday morning. And now that position wrapped up in December. So I purchased a home here in Shorewood in August of last year. So, I'm back in Shorewood full time, and this would be a good time for me to take on this position as a realize the volunteer position takes a lot of your guys' time, a lot of anybody's time. But now is a good time for me that I do have the time to put in for something like this, and I feel like it would be a good. I knew that when I went into DOE, Department of Energy, that it was for a temporary 4 years, and I wanted to have something as my next step that would kind of make sense for that. And I feel like this would make sense coming out of a 4-year policy job, even if it's in Washington DC. It's just that I feel like this kind of would be a natural to go into an elected position after being 4 years in DOE and moving back here to my hometown. So it's just good timing for me. Beyond all the experience I've had in public service and wanting to help my community and making a difference, it's just a good time for me personally to seek this appointment.
Thank you.
Mike?
Trustee Martin?
Do you have any questions of us regarding the position?
I feel like I've gotten a pretty good sense of what it's like. I've been going to the meetings and observing, and paid pretty close attention to the campaigns, and so I feel like I got a pretty good understanding of. Unless there's something I'm missing, you guys want to add.
Whoops, let me tell you about the secret
Yeah. I guess I would just ask, kind of what your process is for making this decision, and is it going to be tonight or?
So I can answer that for you. Tonight, we are hoping that we can come to consensus and pick a candidate, appointment. And the village clerk will follow up with everyone in the morning, either way. It's an open meeting, so if you wanted to stick around or come back, you're more than welcome to wait. We deliberate in public, so you could know. Sometimes people do that, like we send people to the polls, so we know right away. But yeah, and so by tomorrow, at the latest, we'll have something.
We'll be here all night.
I won't let them leave till we come to consensus. No.
She has a key card now.
But I know, but Trustee Amenta did have, I think, a follow-up question.
Sure.
Well,
You did answer it.
Yeah.
I don't have to ask.
Are you comfortable with the budget, not only with numbers, but also policy?
Oh, yeah.
And obviously you are.
Yeah, and I did, that was a real eye-opener, coming into the federal government, is how you actually get stuff done. Like, you can't just hire a contractor, or, you might have ideas that you wanna do, and you just can't spend money. There's a whole process, and, similar here, I'm sure. So, I had to learn a lot about how to actually spend or not spend money, and, one of my tasks was to monitor a support contract that we had for the public meetings. So we had people who would fly all around the country with us and help us staff the meeting and write up meeting summaries and things like that. And we had a budget for that, and it was in Excel and this really crazy one-off software program that was impossible to use, which I had to learn to use. But it was just to kind of monitor spending, and you just had to keep track of the billable hours, and sometimes ask questions so yeah, it's a long way of saying, yeah, I'm comfortable with numbers and budgets. And I actually, just in getting ready for this interview, spent some time reading over the budget and the long-term proposals, and kind of an eye-opener too. So
Anything negative that you saw? Any issue you want to bring up? We can wait for that.
yeah.
Trustee Buckley's question.
So you understand, as you've mentioned, this is basically a volunteer position.
Right.
You don't have staff.
Right.
So you've worked a lot with policy, and you've had staff working for you, but anything you wanna do, you've gotta find a way to get it done.
Right, yeah, and it's that way a lot in the federal government or in the campaign world too, is you end up doing stuff that you wish you could assign to somebody else, but sometimes you just gotta do it yourself, so I'm used to that.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in. Thanks
Thanks
for
for
wanting to
having
serve
me.
your village.
Thank you.
And again, you're welcome to stay or come back, and otherwise we'll be in contact in the morning.
Okay, thank you.
With that.
Do you have 2 more candidates?
Yes.
Yes. Well, one, yes.
Can you tell Rebecca the lawyer out there? So the person can come in. Oh, she's already going to get herself.
Ryan, you have a seat at the head of the table. I think a couple people just stepped out and needed to use the restroom.
Hey there. Sorry, they went to the restroom. Do you
No,
need to
it's
use the
okay.
restroom too?
No, I sweat everything out in the hallway. I'm glad that this is the only building in Shorewood that still has their heat on.
Yes.
I turned mine off about a month and a half ago. I regretted it last night as it was
Yes.
cold and I haven't closed my windows yet. but,
Absolutely. Well, I just keep turning it back and forth, right? It's like,
no. Once you turn it off, you just gotta keep it off.
until last night.
No, you just put more blankets on. Or you just don't sleep that well.
The dogs were like shaking and.
Yeah, I have a husky, so she
she likes
absolutely
it.
loves it. She hates it when it's hot. So
What?
she is living the dream.
That's funny. I had 2 English bulldogs in my 20s, late 20s, and the air went out. You cannot handle heat. It was like I had to pull from the basement, like the window unit. I had to tape
Yeah.
like sheets around so it would like. I mean, otherwise it would just overheat it. It was very bad. I take better care of them than my child.
Correct. Yeah, I saw you. I recognize her. So I better not say something that's too asinine. It was my wonderful reputation.
I'm forgetful.
Yeah, I do too. I went to
Me too.
So did I. From the-
She's doing well. She's her and her husband are in the midst of buying a house. It's very exciting.
Okay, great.
Bye, Jenny.
See you.
Well, welcome, Noah.
Thank you.
Wait, we have Mike. Sorry.
No, he's still in the bathroom. So.
Yeah, I could have chatted in there if you needed to.
Yeah.
That's where all business gets done, right, Tammy?
In the gender neutral bathroom or the lady bathroom?
Oh, good one.
Actually, it's the guy's bathroom, actually.
I don't know if you'd welcome me into your restroom, but
There's nothing like some good bathroom here.
I hope that was on speakerphone too, and that was recorded. So
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you are being recorded.
Good. I hope that gets published on the blog that everyone can hear that I didn't. I want to go to the bathroom.
Yep,
Right.
it's very acceptable here.
Yes. There goes my burgeoning political career.
I know. We're bio-friendly.
Scandal,
We're
yeah.
bio-friendly.
When I
Right
went
in the
for
toilet.
yeah,
so-
well, yeah, there you go.
Oh my gosh, okay, well, we're just gonna call this meeting to order.
Yeah, we can just finish it right now.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
So, hi Noah, thanks for coming in
Thank you.
and wanting to apply to serve at the village. I'm President Rozak, we'll go around the table in a second and introduce all the trustees and the village manager over there.
I was taking copious notes. I'm
Yes, yes.
sure. We're streaming it online. So.
We have 4 questions today, and then at the end of the questions, if you have questions for us, feel free to ask them, we'll answer, and if one of the trustees has a question for clarity, they can follow up and do that as well. So if we just want to introduce ourselves.
I'm David Amenta.
Justin Carpenter.
Mike Marr.
Tammy Backwest
And that's Rebecca.
and Ann McKay. is
And
in
Annie,
there.
and Annie Kate's on the.
Oh, she's been listening this whole time. That's great.
Yep, she's driving.
Oh.
So I don't remember which person, are you first now, or who asked the last
I think we're
question?
back to.
Okay.
What about Shorewood attracts people to live, work, and play? How can the village ensure that these community attributes are maintained and enhanced?
I think there's a couple of things that go along with that. For the live component, you have obviously quality home stock, and I think that's an important component of Shorewood, as well as the stability within both the government and housing. But we also offer what I think are very good schools. Being a product of Shorewood schools, I wouldn't disparage it too much, but we offer quite a few amenities that are unmatched in other suburban areas, and I think one way to maintain both the quality housing that we have as well as the schools is to maintain a consistent, or in my case, preferably lower tax rate, while keeping the services that we have to offer. In terms of why people want to work in Shorewood, having a variety or a diversity of jobs, not just service industry jobs, but also retail and what you'd consider white collar jobs would be an important attribute for why people want to work here. And I think one of the things the committee and the board can do as they are searching for more tenants to vacant buildings is to search out not just the nail salons or coffee shops that Shorewood residents seem to know that we have quite a few of, to no fault of anyone's, but to search out a variety and to make sure that we have a diversity of offerings which allow people to work here as well as to live and subsequently play here. In terms of why people want to play here, I think if you walk down Oakland Avenue, you can see the variety of nightlife as well as day life options available for all residents, both young and old. And I think continuing to have, or if there was a possibility to increase the funding for the rec department, which offers both children and adult recreational activities, making sure the rec department is a viable option. I know they maintain a lot of stuff along the beach line in the summer, as well as activities for people during the winter time. That would be important, as well as maintaining or encouraging a balanced permitting process for some of the adult entertainment in the area to ensure that we have more than just drinking options available for activities. Not that people don't enjoy drinking, but there are other things in life other than consuming alcohol, but I think having those
No.
types of, yes, I know, heaven forbid anyone consume anything other than beer in Wisconsin, but having those types of activities available, like the 4th of July parade, when Camp Bar shuts down and has a block party for a day. I think those kind of activities, both adult and non-adult, are important to have.
Very good, thank you. Trustee Carpenter?
What skills have you acquired or life experiences have you had which make you well matched to the duties and responsibilities of a village trustee?
I'm coming from my job, which is, for better or worse, a teacher. So I'm forced to, day in and day out, listen to 32 different opinions on the same topic, which is both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing in that I get to hear everyone's opinion, and I have to consider everyone's opinion, or someone will get upset and then they'll tell their mom and dad, and then I have another set of troubles. But the act of not just listening, but actively listening to my students, and considering their feelings, considering their opinions, and then explaining myself when we make a decision. Because as you all know, you can't please everyone in the room at the same time, all the time, and there's always someone who's going to have hurt feelings at the end of the day. But as long as they are aware of why you made your decisions and aware of the reasoning and justification for your decisions, they can be as mad as they want, but they'll eventually come around to understand that you made the decision with the best interests and the best information at hand. So my experience as a teacher of having to listen and actively consider people's opinions other than my own is important. I also, at my school, am one of the people in charge of helping to manage our budget, both from an expenditure and a revenue point of view, as well as within the departments, which